Yes.
Okay, I am going to call the meeting to order and ask everyone to rise for the pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. We are going to start with citizen comments. Is there anyone that would like to address the board? Not at this time. Okay, we're going to move right into celebrations. Adam.
Good evening, board members. Celebrations for this evening. Start off with two website stories. The first, we've covered the high school being named to the U.S. News and World Report Best High Schools list previously, but more recently, the high school was also named to the Advanced Placement Honor Roll list. This is the second year in a row and the sixth time overall the high school has received that distinction. It encompasses both in terms of how students do on AP testing, but also the overall culture of the building and how they facilitate students moving forward on a college track, which, as we know, is not the only track that we support students with pursuing, but for those students moving in that direction, the high school is one of the best in the country in doing that. So that'll be another plaque or poster that hopefully we'll put up to go with the others sometime here in the near future. So congratulations to our high school students and all of our staff for that achievement. Second website story, 2 weekends ago, the equestrian team won the state championship. That's the third time they've earned that honor since 2010. So we're working to try to get the word out about that. It's on the sign downtown. We just updated the state championship sign outside of the high school this morning, and obviously on the website as well. So congratulations to those students and their coaches on that accomplishment. We have numerous other co-curricular highlights. I know at some point later this year, Mr. Paulson will be here to kind of give the updates on those. For athletics, we have two students, beyond athletics though, we have two students who have been named finalists in the MSU Art Quest Peace Prize, and their work is posted, I believe, at the Wharton Center this month. And those students are under the guidance of Ms. Megan Kubu at the high school. So congratulations to them. And our middle school and middle school and high school quiz bowl teams have qualified for the state and national championships again for the 10th consecutive year. So congratulations to them and Coach Ellis. I believe Ryan Spain is also serving as assistant coach this year, so also want to make sure I give him credit for that accomplishment. And then finally, a lot of positive news on the bond sale at the end of last week. That'll be covered later in the agenda. So we'll pause on that one, but overall, a very good outcome. And we've posted a press release on that to the bond website as part of the district website. Those are the celebrations for this evening, pending any questions.
Things to celebrate right now. We do not have an educational update, so I'm going to move into superintendent report.
All right, we have upcoming events and agenda items or presentation items. We have on the 11th our next regular meeting. That will include two education updates, the annual audit, and then Dr. Cook will be providing a summary of assessment scores. We're going to try to mix it up a little bit this year and do more of a succinct presentation and really try to flesh out the most salient points of what our data revealed. So it'll probably be a little bit less numbers and a little more of an assessment in terms of the overall picture of how our students performed on those assessments last year. And then the next regular meeting after that will be on the 9th of December. There's also a finance and facilities meeting scheduled for the 28th of October. Also of note is the website update. Currently, this is scheduled to go live the first week of January. As of tomorrow morning, anything else that's put on our old website will not be updated again. It will not be moved over to the new site when that goes live in January. So it'll be important for us to keep backup copies of anything that's posted to the current site. It also means in some sense we'll be putting less items on there in some cases just because of the redundancy of the work, but things like the calendar, upcoming events and those types of things that'll time out anyway, those will be updated. So folks will still get the information that they need, and as always, we'll communicate via email or other means when necessary. But that starts tomorrow, so it'll be kind of an interesting transition. The work's already started. We got some new ideas for the new site, and looking forward to that going live in January. And then finally, on the bond update, like I said, we'll come back to the update on the sale of the bonds at the end of last week later. We also completed last Friday the site visit where we had all the parties involved with the projects that are slated for next summer, hopefully in one case. So those include the lockers at the middle and high school as well. And there's a lot more to that than you would think, just kind of tagging along for that walk. But I think they're going to be really nice, a significant upgrade and much more useful for students once those are completed. The tennis courts were another site visit. Because of the amount of construction and the timeline for that, which is going to start as soon as possible in May, we're looking at not hosting any spring playoff events this year. As you might know, we get picked often to host, which is great. But that whole area back in that parking lot over by the soccer field, baseball, tennis complex, a lot of that is going to be roped off for construction equipment. And starting in May, mid-May probably, the first 2 to 3 weeks are just going to be complete demolition of the current tennis court facility. So a lot of dump trucks carrying debris out and old stuff. And so because of that, there's just not going to be adequate parking to support hosting a home playoff event in those sports this spring.
So that, I'm sorry, that will start in May.
Mm-hmm.
Will that get us through tennis season?
Yes, so it's scheduled for mid-May when the regular season ends, and we're trying to time it up so it's right after the regionals. Paige Paulson could talk more about the details of that, but so we're trying to time it up where it can start as soon as possible when the tennis team completes its season, or at least has potentially qualified for states. We kind of have to see how that plays out, and then finish as close to the start of the school year as quickly as possible. But even if the kids need to go and practice off-site before school starts, where they're actually going to school and have to practice after school, that might be a contingency as well. We'll just kind of have to see how fast the construction goes. One of the variables they've talked about is the weather. So if they get a lot of rain next summer, that's going to slow things down. If it's a dry summer, like it was this past year, then they should have it completed in time. It's about a 3-month project, so if you think about mid-May to mid-August, you kind of need everything to sync up well, but that's the only time obviously it can be done so that the teams can continue to practice and play.
How about the softball field?
Yeah, so softball field was the third one.
Sorry.
That's a little more of a complicated process, and I've been really pushing to see if we can get that done, or at least started next summer. They're going to do an analysis to see how quickly the turnaround could go on those, to do the drawings, get everything bid and proposed, make sure there's no items with a long lead time that they want to be able to get in. So it's going to be kind of close to see if that starts next summer, or if they can do the whole thing potentially. So right now I don't know. It could probably go either way. The positive thing is, regardless of whether it's next summer or the summer of 26, it was originally slated in the timeline for the summer of 27. So we're still moving it up at least a year and maybe 2 years from the original timeline. And I think it's just one of those that we're trying to lean on a little bit, because I think the community would like to see some tangible progress on the bond, and I think that's one of the things that hopefully we can get done sooner rather than later. The other issue was, if you kept it in 27, there's going to be projects going on over the whole district, and while the companies that are supporting the project are going to be the leads on those, there's still just a lot of work that our team has to do kind of behind the scenes, and it's really going to be taxing on custodians and the maintenance team. There's only so much we can support at one time. We can potentially flood those folks to one part of the district to support a major project, but trying to split them out across the district all at the same time would be really difficult for us. So we're trying to kind of space the major projects out a little bit more to make it more realistic for our internal team to support. Any other questions on the bond? We got a long way to go, but it was nice to see all the stakeholders out at the same place, actually talking about how that work's going to get done and some tentative timelines. So starting to get the ball rolling.
What was the timeline that you said, like on the bus loop type of work and things like that?
So that, I'll have to pull that up. So the school is scheduled to break ground in March of '26.
Okay.
And
So they did the school first and then,
yeah, they show the traffic lanes actually at the same time. Looks like they got the whole thing kind of going at roughly the same time, according to the current timeline.
okay.
So subject to change. We got a long way to go on that one. We should start the very beginning of planning for the new school in November, and then it'll just kind of pick up speed from there as we move throughout the rest of the school year.
What does that mean for our lease in-house?
We haven't discussed that yet, but there's obviously a chance we could be moving to a partial year or month by month, but until we kind of know the sequence of when that will need to be removed,
Okay.
don't exactly
And
know
they
that
are
quite yet.
aware
Yeah.
that
Yes,
that might have to happen.
yes. And,
Oh, I assume that the new website is retaining the current domain name?
I believe that's the case, yes. Actually, I hadn't thought about that, but I don't see why it would change, so I'll double check, but yeah, it probably needs to. I hadn't thought about asking.
Any other questions for Adam? Okay, moving to board committee reports. Dave, policy.
Yeah, policy committee met last Thursday to review upcoming policies. This one was a little more straightforward than last time. There was no Title IX concerns. Discussion was primarily all around ethics and kind of spiraled outward from there. So you'll find in your board packet the updated policies. A lot of these are revisions from Troon.
So we'll go over those in discussion, so I would hold your questions until that. Okay, discussion items, our contract with Crunch. Who is gonna take that?
I can take the big picture is, we've spent a couple months going through this in quite a bit of detail. We've had a lot of support from Troon on this as well. Baseline level, the contract is in keeping with what was proposed with with French's initial proposal. We had negotiated / compromised on a few of the finer points, which in the end will save the district some money. But otherwise, I think it's in keeping with what was proposed initially over a year ago now, from the RFP process. Frederick Heidemann from Troon is here and will be providing an overview of the bond sale. And if the board has specific questions on the French contract, because it is interesting to look at, I'm sure he would be able to address some of those specifics, or if not, we can find out between now and the following meeting.
Are there any contracts? Any questions on this? I mean, I guess I don't know what I don't know, so I'm just really, so I'm assuming the stuff that is crossed out here is just stuff that doesn't pertain to us?
I think Frederick can maybe talk more about how the contract format looks.
It's a little goofy. So the standard form contract, the template that was used comes from the American Institute of Architects, which is a very standard form of architect agreement that comes with commercial construction. They have licensing restrictions that force you to track changes from their standard form. Most of those changes that were made were for the favor of the school. I mean, AIA stands for American Institute of Architects, that is not American Institute of School Project Owners.
Yeah.
So we revised it substantially for your benefit, but the licensing restrictions basically force us to track changes in one form or another, is the short answer.
Sure, okay. 'Cause some of it doesn't look like it.
And in keeping that, we drafted some provisions. So for example, you'll notice that there are some services that are stricken from Article 4 of the contract. And we say later on that services stricken from Article 4 are then included in basic services, so you're not paying extra for them. So because we have to track the changes anyway, it's easier to add language like that when you say, well, if it's removed from additional services, well, then it becomes basic services, so it's easier to track that with the red line, since we have the red line anyway.
And then, can I ask, are the things that are underlined, so like, there's something in here, like, about our insurance, so there's stuff that's, if any of the requirements set forth below, in addition to the types and limits of architect normally maintains, the owner shall pay the architectee a set forth in section thing, and then there's, the next section says agreement and amounts identified below, blah, blah, and that's underlined, so is the underlined part is what really pertains to us?
Underline should be, I mean, maybe if I can explain. Underline usually is referring to added changes, but if you're,
So, like, so there's some things like this.
yes, those are.
And like amount, like
So-
I'm assuming
So
the amount.
strikeouts are things that we deleted. Underline is text that was added.
Okay. It just, all right,
Yep.
thank you. Makes more sense.
Is there anything in this contract that you would like us to look closely at?
If I have particular questions that we haven't answered them, I mean, I looked through them, we had discussions with Adam and Sarah about it. I think that we put a good foot forward in the sense that we did an RFP process, so we had an opportunity to basically say, here's the contract that we want you to sign. And if you have any objections to it, you need to tell us. And they did, and I thought they were on the whole reasonable. I mean, you kind of say, here's my ideal contract, work backwards from there. On the whole, it's probably about as favorable as you're gonna realistically get now. 10 years ago, architects would agree to anything that you put in front of their face. They're a lot busier now, and that's not true. So, you know, one thing that I always tell clients in the contract though is it's got to do what you want it to do. And as Adam was saying, it is essentially consistent with your proposal on the fees. If there's any kind of special, you know, if there's any kind of high items that you guys are particularly concerned about with architectural services, you know, now would be the ideal time to make sure that those are included. We can certainly throw those back to French. And that's another thing, I do not think there's any particular urgency to this. French probably does. Well, I should walk that back a little bit. French will tell you there's urgency. And the urgency is that if they're saying we don't want to work further until this is signed, then that's the urgency. But you don't have a bond issue yet. It's going to close soon, November 14th, but until you get the money, there's really no one to pay. So, you know, in my view, that's really when you need to get it signed. So there's still a little bit of time if there's something that needs to be revised.
I think this is out, just personally, my scope of, like,
Right.
knowledge.
Yes.
I mean, if it was I guess a house, or, I don't even know if it was a house, if I'd get it all. So, I mean, Troon looked this over, you looked this over, Sarah looked this over, so I'm just leaning on you guys that, I mean, I read it, I'm not sure I could even pull that much out of it, so.
Yeah, well, you know, it was delayed at least a month and a half, right? We've been telling you, like, it's next meeting, and then it wasn't, right? So
Right.
like, and part of that was because we kept going back and forth on some of the finer details to make sure those were, you know, hashed out. So, and then getting it to you this meeting allows you to vote,
On the
and just before the proceeds would come to the district in November. So, I mean, if you see something that you have questions on in the fine print between now and November, please ask, and we can get you the detailed answers on those. You're gonna see a similar, as convoluted a document coming from Chrisman here, hopefully soon, and so some similar types of things, if you have those questions.
I'd be happy to point out a few highlights of what I think are kind of important revisions.
Okay.
But if I don't have a copy with me, I didn't bring a
Here.
copy, if I could have one, I'll sort of walk through.
I might have messed mine
So let's see, what highlights or voting here to work with. So if you go to 3.1.8, there's a provision here, and all the standard language was stricken out, and instead, what we've added is actually some provisions that are semi-required by Michigan law. So we have, and that's the other thing these standard form documents don't do. They don't take into account state-specific laws at all or school-specific laws at all. The architect acknowledges that the services to be provided by the architect under this agreement shall include providing all services that may or must be performed by an architect under the School Building Construction Act. So the School Building Construction Act requires a qualified person to supervise school construction. Typically, that is something that's going to be done by the construction manager when you hire a construction manager as an agent. What you guys have done, which I think is very wise, is have Chrisman act as a general contractor or is going to convert into a general contractor at the time that bids are awarded. That makes them fully responsible contractually for the construction of the whole project. So one of those requirements, the supervision of the School Building Construction Act, that now has been shifted over to the architect. So they have the legal requirement now to supervise construction is on them. That's a pretty important detail. This is sort of a thing that I've seen, this may not jump out to you, but in 3.5.3, it requires the architect to assist in preparing essentially contractor agreements, and this is going to refer to subcontractor agreements, and then part of Chrisman's contract as well in their capacity as general contractor, but it's in the variety of different construction forms that you see in construction projects. You want to have consistency to make sure that you have like unified dispute resolution method if there is a dispute, arbitration, litigation, whatever it is. We've kind of made them review it to the extent that the dispute resolution provisions are consistent across all those documents, which I mean really should be my job as legal counsel. But one of the things that I've learned is sometimes the architects and CMs don't actually give me them. Or they don't alert the administrators or me when this is happening, and they just include standard forms in their bid documents, and they go out that way without anyone ever knowing. So this kind of gives them some skin in the game to make sure that they need to, making sure that those documents are then reviewed by us. And you'll see in the very next provision, 3.5.3.1, the architect is responsible for verifying that such documents are included in the bid specifications in the project manual and shall contact the owner and the owner's legal counsel, owner refers to the school district, to verify that the documents as they appear in the bid specifications and project manual are correct. So that's just something I've learned from tough experience. So yeah, I mean, like you say, this is not, you kind of have to be a little bit, have one foot in this world to pick up on a lot of this stuff. These are kind of the high level things. The revisions to Article 4, I think that's something that you'll see a lot. Normally under the standard AIA form, if you go to the lists and you see this under Article 4, it's on page 14, these would all be considered additional or supplemental services under the standard AIA form. Look how many have been changed to architect basic service, architect basic service, architect basic service. So shifting on the architect to provide some of these services as part of their standard fee rather than an additional hourly fee. The provisions in Article 5, those, can be a little bit, it's one of the few areas of this agreement that puts affirmative duties on the school district. So sometimes I say, make sure you read Article 5 maybe if you're not going to read anything else, because those speak to specific duties of the school district. That being said, most of these things are going to be actually fulfilled by administrators. So they're often going to be about responding to requests for information, existing building plans, hazardous materials reports, things like that. I've changed a lot of these to kind of give, to make this less of like a passive duty, to be more like an affirmative duty when asked. So when asked, we'll give you whatever information that you're looking for. And oh, by the way, you need to kind of hold our hand because typically school district administrators and board members are not construction professionals. Architect, you are. I may not know what it is you're looking for. You need to dumb this down for me so that when the architect says, hey, do you have field marked project drawings from your 2014 project of the standing seam metal roof, and you get a blank stare back, it's like, come on, help me along. What is it you're really talking about? So some of those responsibilities have been mitigated a little bit. Cost of the work, that's Article 6. We have kind of said that there's two ways of calculating costs of the work. One is for estimating purposes, which is everything, so we get a very broad, like, oh, I missed this in the cost of the work. No, for budgeting, it's everything. But if you're basing your fee on a percentage of the cost of the work, then we have, and I can't remember, is French's fee based on a cost percentage of the cost of the work? I believe it is. Yeah, it is. So we have a narrower version definition of the cost of the work just for calculating fees. So it's not everything in the entire budget, it's just hard construction, effectively.
That's why some of the things, as we talked about I think in a previous meeting, we're gonna try to do it ourselves. Right, so, for example, like the furniture for classrooms, we're just gonna do that, band instruments, things like that, so.
Article 8, 8.1.1, I think this is a very important provision. Normally under Michigan law, there's a statute of limitations for professional malpractice claims against architects that's limited to 2 years. We've clarified here that you can always assert a legal claim against the architect as long as it's filed within 6 years of substantial completion, which is very important for latent defects. So anything that has, hey, our roof looked fine when it was built, 4 years later we got a leak. And, believe me, what always happens is, it's this guy, right? It's not me, there's this other guy. And so contractor's gonna say it's the architect is gonna say it's the contractor to sort that out. And, it might be a design flaw, for example. Well, if you were under the 2-year limitation period, you might be out of luck. But this says, no, we always have 6 years. And that's probably about, that's the contract statute of limitations period. That's probably about as much as you're gonna get and get anyone, willing to agree to it. If representing an owner, I would wanna make it unlimited. You can have forever to sort of claim, but that's just not really realistic to get anyone to actually agree to that. Right below it, 8.1.2 is an indemnification provision, which is just legal jargon for, 8.1.3 that's legal jargon, indemnification for reimbursing when you cause damages to someone else's property or make them incur expenses. At first, that was just limited to basically their negligent acts and omissions. I have also expanded it to include any breach of the contract as well. So that covers a lot bigger of a potential universe for claims if they're that they could be reimbursing the district for damages that they cause. Let's see. That's probably about sort of the highlights. You can terminate this agreement at will. There's nothing that's locking you in. It's 7-day notice period, I believe. Now, that said, that's kind of all well and good in legal abstract land, but in practice, it's actually pretty difficult to terminate an architect midway through a project, just because, getting rid of them, demobilizing them, remobilizing another architect midway through is just practically challenging. Yeah, and then the cost things, like I say, that's pretty much consistent with the proposal since you've already reviewed that. Article 12, I think, has a lot of provisions that have been added largely for the school district's benefit. I'll just hit a few highlights. The architect shall not be entitled to additional compensation in the event it is necessary to extend the contract completion date because the project is delayed due to conditions beyond the control of the owner. That's favorable. Sometimes I see a lot of proposals that'll have sort of any services beyond this date will be additional services that will be, additional compensation. We've kind of said, no, we're hiring you for the completion of the project, and you're going to be with us for your standard fee for as long as it takes to complete it. 12.11 is sort of an interesting provision. Kind of spells out what I think is a pretty common sense way to, if you have a design flaw in the architect's drawings, basically, if it's detected before the work is bid, then the cost of any redesign is going to be borne by the architects. The architect is paying for, they're not gonna charge you more like, oops, we need to redesign this because we messed up. That makes sense. But you will be responsible for the extra construction costs in that circumstance. And that, if you think about it, that actually makes complete sense, because basically you're just paying for what you should have gotten in the first place, right? So if they design something wrong and then they fix it, you're just paying for the construction costs as what it should have been. But again, this is only if that's detected before the work is bid. If it's detected after the work has already been bid out, so architect's drawings have already gone to contractors, they've already bid on the work, we already have subs in place, already have shovels in the ground, now it's a different story. Say we discover design errors there. Well, if it amounts to the level of malpractice, which is sort of the standard, right? If it amounts to professional malpractice on the part of the architect, then the architect has to pay for the costs, the additional construction costs of then correcting or replacing the work. So there's sort of two different standards there. 12.18, the architect agrees to provide assistance up to 1 year beyond the date of substantial completion as part of its basic services, as well as a post-occupancy evaluation of the building 30 days prior to the expiration of last contract or warranty period. And the idea there is to have a review to make sure that the project components are performing as specified, that they're not just sort of hey, we designed this and we're out, and then it's not even, hey, we designed this and now we're supervising completion and we're out. It's 1 year after that to make sure everything continues to be performing well. So that's kind of a high-level overview.
Thank you, that was helpful.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions based on any of that? Thank you very much. That was helpful.
So just remember all that when we get to the next one.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, moving into our board policies. Who would like to take? Anything stick out? Who want,
Like I said, these are pretty straightforward this week compared to the last time. We're adding two 3570 disbursements and 5670 time and effort reporting. Disbursements essentially is just adding some additional context around where public funds can be spent, and the time and effort reporting is basically around tracking funding for specific activities. We're removing 3, those are all covered elsewhere or made redundant, and the ones in the middle where we're revising, those are primarily going through the Trune updates. 3 of them had pretty substantial updates. That would be family medical leave, which has all the FMLA policies in it. The ethics, which is a complete rewrite, and the 8580, the child abuse policy, which has, again, a lot more legal notices in it.
I have a question just about disbursements. So the very first one, 3570 on petty cash. So under B, it said the board may authorize a separate petty cash fund, da-da-da. Well, at the very last sentence says the amount of each petty cash fund will not exceed $0. So
So
are
we have
we not doing?
We're not doing petty
We're not
cash.
doing petty
We
cash.
have other means in use currently. This is primarily for the citations around where the public funds can be used. It's
Okay,
grouped
so
in
we
the same
can't just
policy.
say, we're not gonna do that. All right. Any other questions?
I was trying to figure out, like, when I was looking at some of these, I couldn't tell what was changed. So like on 8580, child abuse, it's not listed in here, but it's not part of the attachment. Oh, that's under the second one, okay.
Yeah, it's a revision one.
But I was looking in here, and there were red lines in some of these, but not in others, and yellows in some, but then this one, I didn't see anything in red except for date revised. So, I'm not seeing any changes on
But-
this,
Which one are you looking at?
8580. At least in board book, when I was looking at it,
Okay.
directly in board book. And maybe it's just not coming through.
That was a replacement policy, if I recall correctly.
So is that a brand new, is that just that everything is new? Is that what I'm seeing?
Oh, yeah, okay, so it's on page 63 of 92 in Board Book, and it's a complete rewrite.
Okay, so it's
What,
all new, okay.
yeah, so what happened was, hold on,
Thank you.
well, what I don't see though is
The original?
the original.
Yeah, and I was looking in Board Book itself, and I just didn't, I only saw,
Yeah, so I think that's the issue. So,
okay,
yeah, good point. So, so 8580 exists in its totality, last updated November of 1999. And then that's on the policy manual page, so the new 8580 is a complete rewrite.
is that the same with 4015 insurance as well, is a complete rewrite? I'm not
Yes.
seeing- Okay, so that's new as well, okay. So I'm gonna guess that if there's nothing in here, that those are just rewrites. Probably.
Some of the child abuse stuff, I'm sure, if I'm remembering correctly, I mean, some of this is just law. Like, I mean, this has to be done.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that was actually taken right from
From,
Sharon.
right, so
Yes.
I'm not
Mandatory
sure what
reporting.
we,
And I'm fine with it, I just
what
wanted
are,
to verify.
I mean, right,
I
we
just
might
wanted
not
to
have had that, but I think, like, reading this is what is
Mhm.
practiced, I
Yeah.
guess, if we had one of
I
those.
think it's just that the old policy in that instance, and maybe others, like the complete policy with like the lines through the whole thing,
Yeah,
might not have been there, and I think that's what caused
Yep.
the question.
is what,
No, I
So-
appreciate it.
So it's just a removal of the old and a complete replacement.
I had a
appreciate
question about 8580, Part A, number 3, about bullying. So is that new, or has that been the policy that every instance of bullying is reported to the principal? And then I'm wondering is that data collected? Is that sent to you, Adam?
Yeah, we collect that, and that's part of the Mass Law reporting the board receives in June.
it. Mhm.
So do we have is there a program to prevent bullying? I
Yeah,
get
there's
this
a number
question a
of-
lot.
Yeah, there's a number of programs. I mean, I guess the most well-known one is the Be Nice program that's prevalent at the middle and high schools, but there's different initiatives across all the buildings focused on. Bullying has a bunch of specific things that have to occur legally, but it's more just, being kind, appropriate behaviors, not harassing other people. And then, of course, it can escalate to the point of bullying, and then that's obviously a more serious issue.
But it also involves, for the students who see bullying or are being bullied, that they are assertive enough to report it and they have the language to say back to that student.
Mhm.
So it's a whole training process,
Yep.
starting from kindergarten on, that, a good bullying program has all those components.
And it also we also utilize our internal systems to track those instances so that you can connect the dots. So a singular instance might be addressed at face value in terms of what has presented itself, but by keeping those records, you can then go back and connect all the dots, the relationships, the other previous issues, and then you can start to say, okay, there's a pattern here, or this has occurred, or whatever. I mean, you might have a singular instance that rises to the level of bullying, depending on the severity of the situation, but those data systems that we have, that the buildings maintain, are what allow us to then go back and compile, or make those evaluations and kind of determine if there's those patterns, if those issues are prevalent. And then, of course, those have a separate course of action that's taken, and then we roll that up and report it back out to the board at the end of the school year.
I just have one last question about the tutoring. So basically, we're telling, am I reading this correctly, that teachers, well, it says employees, are not engaging in tutoring outside of school? Are they eligible to do tutoring outside, like, I guess,
Yeah, they're eligible to do it outside of their work time, but they are not allowed to do it during school hours. When they're
can they, so this tutoring thing has always been a little tricky for me, because, again, if we tell parents, you need to bring in paper, pencils, whatever. If we say that because we're a public school, then we basically are saying that those are things we need to provide. We can give wish lists and things like that. So if we have a teacher that says your child is, you know, behind in math, and I suggest getting some tutoring, and, oh, here's my, you know, card, and I charge $25 an hour, and I have times on these days, what would you like? Can they promote them, is that something they can actually do? Or if a parent came to a teacher and said, I'm looking for a tutor, and that teacher said, oh, okay, are you?
Well, teachers,
I kinda-
anybody
I
is
guess I-
free outside of their work hours to engage in
Right, but
business
can they,
practices.
but can they, if I was a parent and the teacher said, your child needs extra support and here's, you know, tutoring opportunities, I would say, okay, then why aren't you providing them? I'll have him here at 4 o'clock and you'll do this for free. I mean, I feel like there's like this little I don't know, it just seems like if a staff member, whether it's a tutor or whether it's a teacher or a para or something, was having a conversation and publicizing that they do tutoring and then recommending that your child should have tutoring by me, I don't know, I feel like, I guess that's what I'm asking. Is that something they can do? Or are we saying, like, is that a conflict? I don't know, for me, I guess I feel like it's kind of a fuzzy line that we're crossing a little bit. If a teacher or a parapro is saying to a parent, I think your child needs extra support and needs tutoring outside of school, and here's my resources and you're gonna pay me for that. Am I wrong? I mean, does
So-
anybody else think that, or is it just me? If it's just me,
So typically, the process would be the teacher is gonna recommend that the student move through our MTSS process. As part of the MTSS process, we have additional resources that are provided at no charge to include optional before and after school support that teachers are providing at no cost to parents. And they get those additional resources. I think this would be more focused on things that are clearly gonna happen outside of the staff member's working day, and could be an example like over the summer. You know, tutoring over the summer. We've had teachers run back-to-school prep camps and things like that, where they're providing those additional academic supports or programs for students if parents so chose to enroll. And we've not promoted those, but we haven't kept the teacher from being able to get the word out either. So I think a lot of times it's on a case-by-case basis. If we're aware of something that seems like we need to question it, we can have those individual conversations with that individual. But I don't know that I've run into a situation where, of course, it could happen, but where we've had that kind of circumstance.
That was my only, I just don't, you know, I don't know. If it has happened, like, what exactly are we talking about for tutoring? I feel like can be like a fine line of that.
Do you want to talk about ethics with the inappropriate word? Or do you just want to keep that as is?
We can bring it up. In the 5695 ethics policy,
Hold on 1 minute.
let me find that again really quick.
It's right before the child abuse.
It's on 57 in your board book.
I have in our tutoring for pay, ethics, intellectual property.
This, the 5695, okay, yep.
Yeah, so
Yes.
under section C, student fraternization, number 7, inappropriate kissing. We brought this up and discussed this specifically, especially questioning, is there a circumstance that would be considered appropriate kissing? Adam brought that up to Trone, and they suggested that that word could be stricken completely and just kissing in general is not allowed.
Because you have to remember this is for employees, so.
Yeah, I think their answer was that they used the word inappropriate to state that kissing was inappropriate.
Yeah.
But you could also read it, which is, I think, the way we read it in committee,
That
which
there's a
is
type
that
of
there's a
kissing-
type of
Yeah.
kissing that's
that's
appropriate and
inappropriate.
inappropriate, and that was not their intent, so we can just delete the word inappropriate if you'd like, and just have kissing as a standalone.
Yeah, I would, take out inappropriate kissing, because that's how I would,
Wait, I think they're just saying to take out inappropriate, not inappropriate kissing.
Yeah,
Right.
just the word
but when,
inappropriate.
yes, correct. I'm saying take out inappropriate, because when I look at inappropriate kissing, I would think, well, what is
What is
appropriate?
appropriate?
Yeah, it implies there's a difference.
Yeah.
Right. We're saying that.
All right.
Any other, comments or anything about these? All right. If you do have any other questions, get them to Dave or Adam for our next meeting in November. Okay, we're on to action items. Can I please get a motion to approve our consent calendar?
Make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education approve the minutes for the regular meeting held on October 7th, 2024 as presented.
Can I have a second?
Second it.
So I have first Chris, second Dave. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have 2 roll call votes. Are there? We have 2 roll call votes. Can I please have a motion to approve the insulin litigation resolution, please?
Whereas, one, entities nationwide have recently started joining a nationwide lawsuit against various insulin manufacturers, pharmacy benefit manufacturers, and other defendants accused of artificially inflating insulin prices at the expense of employers and healthcare plan entities, specifically case number 2:23-MD-03080 in United States District Court for the District of New Jersey, quotation lawsuit. 2, entities in the lawsuit are being represented by Franz Law Group, a PLC, a California Professional Law Corporation, quotation France. 3, Truen Law Firm, PC, referred the entity to France for the lawsuit. 4, the board believes it is in the entity's best interest to join the lawsuit on the terms specified in the attached attorney-client fee contract. 5, the board believes it's in the entity's best interest to authorize and direct Dr. Adam Spina, superintendent or designee, to sign the attached attorney-client fee contract on behalf of the entity and to take such other action as necessary to obtain monetary damages for the entity in the lawsuit, subject to review by the entity's legal counsel. Now, therefore, be it resolved that, 1, the board decides to join the lawsuit on the terms specified in the attached attorney-client fee contract. 2, the board authorizes and directs Dr. Adam Spina, superintendent or designee, to sign the attached attorney-client fee contract on behalf of the entity and to take such other action as necessary to obtain monetary damages and injunctive relief for the entity in the lawsuit, subject to review by the entity's legal counsel. 3, all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
Second?
Great, so I have a first Dave, second Sarah. Amanda, can you take us through roll call, please?
Amanda? Yes. Chris?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And Nancy.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, our next roll call vote is the bond ratification resolution. And
1, by resolution adopted on August 26, 2024, the bond resolution, the insurer authorized the issuance of not to exceed $38,500,000 2024 school building and site bonds, the bonds. And 2, in the bond resolution, the board authorized the sale of the bonds and the delegated authority to the superintendent of schools and or the director of finance, each under authorized officer, to accept the offer of Stifel, Nicholas and Company, Incorporated, the underwriter, to purchase the bonds subject to parameters established in the bond revisions. And 3, based upon the information provided in the issuer's financial consulting firm, an authorized officer accepted an offer from the underwriter to purchase the bonds, and the board desires to ratify and affirm the acceptance of the offer.
Second.
So I have a first, Dave, I'm sorry, I saw the second was Sarah. Any other discussion? Amanda can,
So I think Frederick would, if you have
Sure.
any questions or.
Yeah, I mean, the resolution itself is, it's kind of technical in the sense that we've already authorized the issuance of the bonds. That was the bond authorizing resolution that you guys saw back in August. But since that time, we've had the bond sale, and in the preamble you heard that there was the offer by Stifel Nicholas, which is a national bond underwriter, to purchase the bonds. They did. We had a bond purchase agreement that was signed to do that. That was an administrative action, so the purpose of this resolution is really just to ratify and affirm everything that happened with the sale of the bonds through that bond purchase agreement. That's why we call it a ratification resolution. And the rest of the resolution just goes through some of the details of the results of the bond sale. The par amount of the bonds is $35,425,000. That is less than what was authorized under the authorizing resolution, which was $38.5 million. So you're probably wondering, like, so what happened to the rest of our money? And what happened was the bond sale produced a bond structure that had slightly higher than market interest rates. And in exchange for that, you basically got more money called premium. And that premium then is used to reduce the par amount of the bond. So if you think about this, it's like if you think about like a mortgage loan, imagine you're paying a higher than average interest rate, but you're able to lower the amount that you're borrowing. That's effectively what happened. So that's why the par amount of the bonds is less than what was authorized. But then that premium is still deposited into the project fund. So you're still maximizing what's available for projects. So if you see on page, 3, the sum of $38,317,690 is deposited into your capital projects fund. So you still got pretty much the maximum of the voter authorization deposited into your project fund. The difference between the $38.5 million and the $38,317 basically is cost of issuance, our fee, financial advisor's fee, underwriter's fee. Actually, not even the underwriter's fee, because the premium was also used to pay the underwriter's fee. So our fee, PFM, your financial advisor's fee, the rating agency's fee, publication fees for printing the official statement, which is it's like the bond equivalent of a stock prospectus, all that stuff. A lot of people involved in issuing bonds. So that's basically the short story of that. And you can see that sum of $179,000 is used to pay the cost of issuance. So that's kind of the fun stuff, to the extent that there's fun stuff with this. The rest of it is all kind of legal jargonish stuff. Happy to answer any questions, though, if you have any. You do have the opportunity to refinance these bonds, I should say that. If there's an opportunity and interest rates drop, you can refinance them. We will have to wait 10 years to do that. That's standard when you sell bonds. There's a 10-year call period. Just because investors aren't willing to have the uncertainty of having their bonds refinanced before 10 years. But after 10 years, that's kind of a standard of the industry.
any other questions, or any questions? Do you have anything? Okay, Amanda, will you take us through roll call, please?
Amanda, yes. Chris?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And Nancy?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And we have another separate action item to approve the typing program.
Make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education approve the Type C typing program as part of the second grade curriculum.
Second.
I'm gonna give that to Deb. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Our board goals are on here. We have a couple correspondence. I'm going to open this up to any citizen comments. We do not have any. Board member reports or requests. Okay, I'm I'm gonna move us right along, because I know there's a band concert several people want to get to. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, so first Chris, second Deb, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you all.